In the year 2375, Earth had long been part of the Galactic Concord, a vast alliance of planets and species that spanned hundreds of light years. The interstellar highway between planets was a bustling trade route, and the stars were as familiar as the moon once was. On Christmas Eve, the streets of New York were adorned with holographic snowflakes, and above, ships glided through space like shooting stars. Max Donovan, a mechanic at the city's spaceport, was one of many who repaired the massive fleet of trade ships that came and went from Earth's ports. His life was simple, his dreams small, but he'd always had a fascination with the stars. Though the nearest he'd gotten to space was fixing broken thrusters, his heart yearned for something more. On Christmas Eve, as holiday lights flickered across the spaceport and festive music filled the air, Max was finishing up a shift, daydreaming about a quiet holiday at home, when alarm bells rang. A massive ship, unlike any he had seen before, was preparing to land. Its sleek, silvery surface gleamed, adorned with radiant jewels and symbols in a language no one could decipher. This was no ordinary freighter. It was a royal vessel. Before the spaceport officers could react, the airlock doors opened and a small group. Out. Among them was a figure who instantly captured Max's gaze. She was tall, poised, and breathtakingly beautiful, wearing a flowing gown of shimmering, translucent fabric that shifted colors like the northern lights. Her skin was a deep, ethereal shade of violet, and her long silver hair cascaded down her back like a river of stars. She had an otherworldly beauty that left Max rooted in place. Someone announced her name with reverence, Princess Seraphine of Virella. She stepped forward with quiet grace, her luminous eyes scanning the bustling spaceport with a mix of curiosity and caution. Max felt his breath catch as she turned her gaze toward him. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy around them seemed to fade away. He blinked, but the connection remained, like an invisible tether. Max didn't know it then, but everything in his life was about to change. Princess Seraphine had come to Earth for a diplomatic mission, but the situation had grown far more complicated than anyone expected. Her father, the Emperor of Virella, had been assassinated by a group of radical conspirators. The royal family was in turmoil, and Seraphine had fled her homeworld to avoid becoming their next target. She was alone in a foreign galaxy, surrounded by unfamiliar customs and strange faces. But Earth was known as a sanctuary for the desperate, a place where diplomacy often brought refuge. Despite her status, despite the weight of her mission, she felt lost. Max didn't know any of this. All he knew was that the princess, this stunning, mysterious woman, had a presence that made his heart race. And when she looked at him, it felt as though she could see right through him, as if she knew his every thought and every secret. Over the following days, fate twisted their paths together. Max was assigned to work on the royal ship, fixing a malfunction in its engines. Seraphine had insisted on meeting him personally after hearing of his skill. She seemed oddly intrigued by him, an Earth mechanic of all people. During one of their impromptu meetings in the ship's hangar, she surprised him with a simple question. "Do you miss Earth's old traditions?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic. The question caught him off guard. She wasn't asking about the mechanics of the ship. She was asking about him. "I miss the quiet," Max replied, wiping his hands on his coveralls. "The simplicity of it all, especially on Christmas Eve. The snow, the lights, the feeling of being home." "Home," she murmured, a faint sadness in her eyes. "My home is no longer safe. I've left my family, my world, behind." Max felt a pang of sympathy. His heart ached for her, for the weight of her grief and loss. Without thinking, he blurted out, "Would you like to spend Christmas Eve with me? I can show you how we celebrate here." Seraphine studied him for a long moment, her eyes flickering with something unspoken. Finally, she nodded. "I'd like that." That night, Max took her to his favorite place on Earth, an abandoned rooftop on the outskirts of the city where stars were visible without the interference of city lights. He'd decorated the space with a few strands of holographic tinsel and a small tree, its twinkling lights reflecting against the dark skyline. They sat beneath the stars, sipping on hot cocoa that Max had secretly made himself. Seraphine seemed to relax for the first time since her arrival. Her shoulders eased, and a soft smile curved her lips. They spoke of their worlds, his Earth and her distant, shimmering planet of Virella. As the night deepened, Max found himself captivated not just by her beauty, but by her spirit, her quiet strength, her vulnerability, her determination. It was as if the entire galaxy had conspired to bring them together, just for this night. "You said Christmas is about being home," she said, her voice quiet as she gazed up at the stars. "But I think I've found something even more precious." Max's heart thudded in his chest as he leaned closer, drawn to her in a way he couldn't explain. "What's that?" he asked softly. "Connection," she whispered. "Even across the stars, we can find moments of peace and love." The stars seemed to glow brighter above them, illuminating their faces as they looked into each other's eyes. And then, slowly, Max leaned in, and their lips met in a gentle, lingering kiss. In that kiss, they shared more than just a moment. They shared their hopes, their fears, and the promise of something extraordinary. When they finally pulled away, Seraphine's eyes sparkled with a new light, a warmth that made her feel, for the first time since leaving her home, as if she belonged. And Max, gazing at her, realized that he no longer felt alone. The vastness of the galaxy had brought them together, and under the quiet stars, they had found a piece of home within each other. As the first light of Christmas Day